tomorrow. So you're stuck with Commissioner Mortensen and I today. What we have going on this morning, we have some consent agenda items we'll go over. Got a motion item. We do have a public hearing at 9:45 that I have to be aware of. And then we'll open for comments. At this point in time, I would ask Commissioner Mortensen to give some motion on the minutes.
Good morning, everyone. As usual, I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to adopt those minutes.
Any comments? Questions? Seeing none, I will call for a vote on the minutes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Consent agenda today, we have the items we have a call for bids on for the 2023 paving striping project. It looks like those bids will close May 30th when final will be awarded. We have an updated agreement, renewal agreement with on the stormwater capacity grant with the Department of Ecology. It's moved. The dollar amount of that has changed from 70,000 to 132.5 is what Department of Ecology will grant to us for. It covers 11 different uses, from education to illegal dumping to equipment. It covers a different span of stuff. Renewal agreement with Delta Dental of Washington for retiree dental insurance. Contract execution with Apex Mechanical replacement boilers at the Cowlitz County Administration building and the annex buildings. We've talked about that over the last couple weeks. An extension of a agreement really between Cowlitz County and Thomas McDonald Cascadia Law Group for professional services. We use these people and have in the past, and this is an extension of an existing agreement we have. We got a letter from FEMA just kind of outlining effective flood insurance study report and flood insurance rate maps. I think those change every so often. We did appoint, we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, and turns out we have one appointment to this boundary review board. And so we have had Mr. Davison on here for a couple of terms, and we appointed him for another term. And then we sent the letter to Cynthia Brown from the Service Transportation Board. That was the one I read to you last week, taking us out of that rails to trails notice of interim trail use. Then we have vouchers in the amount of $2,101,145.86. Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? Any comments, Arn?
No comments.
Okay. See no hands. I would call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Last chance to comment. Seeing none, I would call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. One motion item. I see Gina.
Morning,
Good
Gina
morning.
James, Health and Human Services. Just one item on the agenda today. It's an amendment with Washington State Department of Health to our Consolidated Contract. There's a number of activities involved in this contract. The amendment today is adding Group A scope of work and funding for the year. This is funding we've received before. They're adding $3,250 for our role with the Group A water systems in the county.
You know, as you know, they're working and they complete this new budget. Would we expect to see probably amendments on different things as new dollars roll down out of the budget? I'm guessing it won't be unusual for us to see amendments as they.
No, and this particular contract, this is, I think, amendment number 7, when we just got this new contract in January. So we've already had 7 amendments.
Yeah.
And it's pretty typical, especially with this one, to see a number of amendments.
Okay. Any questions?
I find the mechanics always interesting. So did the folks up in Olympia go through and say, okay, today is Wednesday, C for Cowlitz, okay, let's give them, let me guess, the number is such and such, or how does that actually come that it ends up here at our desk?
I'm not exactly sure with this particular funding. I know a lot of our other funding is based on population, different formulas they use.
Automatic,
Pardon me?
automatic.
With a lot of our other fundings, it is sort of like that. This particular funding, I'm not sure how. I think they do their best at estimating. I know we have close to 70 Group A systems in the county, but they're not all inspected each year. They're on like a 3 to 5 cycle for inspections. And so I think they do their best to try to estimate what that would end up, what that would look like in terms of work. And they'll look at what we utilized last year. So in the nitty and gritty of the amendment, they're removing, I think, $750 from last year's funding that is sort of rolled over into this year's funding. So we didn't quite use everything from there last year. And so they adjusted it down a little bit. I think last year's funding was closer to 4,000.
So the intent here is to live by the often ignored, we issued a mandate, we'll pay for the costs of the mandate. Is that right?
Yes, they're sending some funding to help do those inspections.
To help or to pay for it incomplete?
To pay for, it doesn't quite cover, I don't think it quite covers everything, but yes, to help pay for our role in.
What was the reason we didn't use the $750 then?
The funding is split between, there's a little bit for technical assistance and the bulk
No.
of it's for the sanitary survey or inspection piece. So I think there was a little bit of a difference there.
And that was out of a total of how much it was spent? Approximately.
4,000, might have been like 4,200.
Okay, and this year that's that amount minus 750 or plus 750?
Minus.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I don't see any hands.
Would you like a motion, Mr.
I
Chairman?
would, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve that we accept the contract approval with the Washington State Department of Health as has been discussed.
We have a motion on the floor. Last chance for comments. Seeing no hands, hearing none, I would call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Gina. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I'll offer a couple comments. Remember, I got a 9:45 hearing, but we'll have time to open up to the public before then. And I'll give you couple quick updates. There is a flyer out there. You can see the gun range is celebrating its 10 years. Hard to believe it's been 10 years already, but it's 10 years, and this Saturday they're offering, you can go out, if you're a shooter, you can go out there and they won't charge you to participate in the gun range. They're offering, I think, hot dogs and chips and stuff. And just, so if that's something you like to do, this Saturday would be a perfect time to go out to the gun range and do that. Last week I had a question from a constituent on Washington State building codes, and they come down and do we have to adopt them was the question. Do we have to take those, or can we ignore them? And the answer to that is, these codes are put together. Well, I'll give you a little history, because I get these questions and I try to study them a little bit. In 1988, we adopted the Washington State Building Code Council. And what that council does is its goal is to keep building codes across the state consistent with everybody. So they'll update those every so many years. It sounds like it's about on a 3-year cycle. And this council, there are people that are appointed. I think there's one representative that sits on it and one senator that sits on it. But it's basically an unelected group that controls the whole state of Washington when it comes to building codes. So you can choose not to adopt them, but you can't choose to not enforce them. So you're basically, do they take effect? Yes, they take effect. And there's not a thing we can do about it. There has been places that have tried, Spokane has tried to peel some of those back, and you are, as a sitting body, you are subject to civil and civil suit and personal liability for those decisions. You can't make those decisions. The state controls this. I get on this rant every once in a while because have you ever seen this committee on a ballot on a 4-year or 2-year basis? You can't vote for these people. You have no place to voice your opinion, but you have to abide by it. And I get on that. We do that all the time where we set up departments, Department of Ecology, Department of Education, and you can just name them off one by one, that have authority to control everything you do, but you have no authority to vote them out of office. So this really stuff kind of sticks in my craw, but the answer is we got to enforce them whether we adopt them or not. So this is when they come down in July, and our group will do a good job of explaining to us the changes and what we need to comply with, but that will be what we do. I looked up, I said, okay, we talk about affordable housing all the time. You hear it was up in Olympia all session about what are we going to do about affordable housing. So I did some research and I looked up and through NAHB.org, National Association of Home Builders. They do a study every 5 years. They did in 2011, 16, 21. And they really tried to identify the cost of government regulation to a house. And in the last time they did a study was 2021, and the average price of a house was $394,300. The average cost of these kind of actions, government mandates, when you do for a house of an average price was $93,870, about 24%. So about 25% of your single family house price is due to government regulation. So when you talk about and that is stuff they can identify. In their study, when you look through it, they said that's stuff we can identify. We can't get down into the weeds like what part of a 2x6, cost of a 2x6 can be attributed to government regulation, or what cost of a sheet of sheetrock what part of that cost could be contributed to government regulation. So I'm telling you that 24% number is probably low. When it comes to multifamily housing, apartments and stuff like that, it's up over 40%. So affordable housing, the people that cry the most about affordable housing are the people that cause it to be unaffordable. So that's my rant for the day. The short answer to his question is we got to enforce it even if we don't adopt it. So it's going to be what it is. The longer rant is we got to quit letting them put these agencies in place that tell us what to do and you don't have a throat to choke. You hear me talk about that all the time and it just drives me crazy. Okay,
If I may?
I'll get off that. Yes.
Yeah, excellent. The way I look at things is RCWs are more important than the administrative codes. And at some point when the administrative codes become too onerous, as Jim Walsh says, peaceful protest is probably what we have to do. The other thing I would add is that we continually re-elect a set of legislators who basically are the cause of all of this. They simply buy the allegiance of special interest groups. And when you see what's gone on, probably the best thing you can do is replace almost all of them, if not all of them. Okay, enough on that. And the cost is astounding. That doesn't include any of the labor laws, right?
No, it was this you could pull that up and see the whole survey and what they look at, but they really try to just identify costs that builders can easily say, I do this because of regulation. Like I say, it doesn't include some of the ancillary stuff because it's hard to figure. Well, I don't know how much of a 2x6 is.
Right.
Yeah.
And by saving the 93K, they're not saying instead of building a reasonable building, we'll build an unreasonable building and save 93,000.
Yeah.
They're not going to go every other 2x4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you giving us time to get up here and rant a little bit once in a while. We'll open up the public comments. Just remember when it hits 9:45, we're going to have to shut it down for a short period of time, but till that time, it's open season. Sure. Let's make sure the green light's on, Rick. You see it?
There it is.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
All righty. I'd like to speak first. Just a second, it's a little stressful up here. Hee hoo. I know that works for girls and doesn't work for me. A lot of pressure up here. I was up here the other day and ranted and raved about a sheriff's investigation. Chewed Art out, chewed Rick Dahl out, called him yesterday and chewed him out. They're real patient. They got the patience of Job, I guess, working with public people. At that time, I thought that Cowlitz County had done a bad sheriff's job in an investigation, and the evidence was overwhelming. In reading the first part of the sheriff's investigation, it said my ranch, the first page, I've only read one page out of 250, and then I turned it over to my legal team. It upset me so bad. It'd be Virginia Shogun. She's doing the grand jury investigation. But anyway, the first thing that the sheriff said that was wrong in my report, and I was a criminal, was that I had valued the property of my real estate wrong. It's the first thing in the sheriff's report. So I got to thinking, and well, this is easy to prove, and I don't believe a sheriff would put himself out there like that in jeopardy to make a false report. So he said in the report, he had looked it up on Google and my ranch was worth 400 and some $1,000 or something like that. When my ranch, I've got certified appraisals. I own the first place on Layton Prairie Road out there in Toledo, crossing all those prairies. Private airplane hangar, large farm, big barns. And the sheriff's office stated that on Google Earth, that my house was a 1-bedroom apartment with no outbuildings. So I thought, well, the sheriff would never do that. He would never put himself out there because he could get caught and go to jail. So I did the same investigation that sheriffs did. I pulled that up on Google Earth and it came up, my house is a 1-bedroom apartment. So I called a realtor and worth 400,000, my house is worth $1.4 million. I have appraisals for it. So I went ahead and called up a realtor and I asked him to do an investigation. I know him, he's been to my house. I told him to look up 154 Layton Road in Google Earth. It comes up a 1-bedroom apartment. He tells me, he goes, well, that's wrong, that's false, and that's a lie. And I said, I know. And he goes, okay, I'll do an investigation for you. On his investigation, and I go, where did you get this information? Where do the realtors get this information? And they said, from Lewis County's auditor's office, because they know the size of the house and blah, 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 blah. So this information came from Lewis County, which I have a federal case against. They listed my house as a 1-bedroom house on the acreage, no airplane hangar, no barns, no nothing. He goes, he looked it up and he goes, I got it figured out. He goes, they're showing pictures of your neighbor's house and an egg handling building from the 1950s and claiming it's 154 Layton Road. The county did that. And the sheriff's investigation looks up 154 Layton Road. And I'm claiming my property's worth 1.4 million. And they're finding out it's worth $380,000 or $400,000. So they write that I'm lying in the sheriff's report. When all actuality, it's Lewis County. It's lying to the realtors. Everywhere it's listed as a 1-bedroom house. So I owe an apology to Arndt and the sheriff's department. I've done everything right my whole life. I've had 2 traffic tickets in my whole life. And I want to apologize to you people for yelling at you. And you guys were given wrong information by Lewis County Courthouse. The same people that accused me falsely and held me 6 months in an election crime. The same people, John Myers, Phil Hillier, Scott Blinks. And what's really funny is those people were all my own lawyers. And in a federal court case, they used their own law partner against me in a federal case, taking 140 acres and $60 million out of my name. These same people fed this courthouse false information to devalue my land, keep it held for over 8 years out of my hands, $1.4 million. This is a crime, and I owe this courthouse and the sheriff's department an apology. I'll be presenting evidence to the sheriff's department on this information that I've received, and I do expect an arrest on Mrs. Blondin for real estate fraud. Thank you guys very much. I was going to give you guys a presentation with 10 exhibits. Come to find out I don't need it. You can just look up Google Earth, Rick Satcher, 154 Layton Road. It's listed as a 1-bedroom apartment. And in actuality, it's worth $1.4 million. All done by Lewis County Courthouse to stop me in an election fraud. I owe this people an apology, Art Morrison and Rick Dahl and the sheriff's department in Cowlitz County. They were lied to. And I'll give the correct information to the sheriff's department by the end of the week. And I expect an arrest on Andrea Blondin, who's already been convicted by Washington State Bar. Thank you guys for your participation. And thank you for your patience.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Mr. Dahl.
I said absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else? Really? You guys are this quiet today?
Just building up.
You just. Well, we don't have anything till 9:45. We can recess this till 9:45. I don't see any comments, hands. I don't even see any chat. It's a slow day.
Someone has to have a question.
Okay. Okay, we'll recess till 9:45. Thank you. Open that hearing.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. We're here today for a public hearing on establishing no parking zones. We are establishing 7 different no parking zones with various restrictions. Numerous are for all vehicles all the time, and we have some other for all vehicles, no overnight parking. So I'll run through the list. There's 6th Avenue South, which is down here in Kelso as one of our little islands. It's a 0 from milepost 0.12 to milepost 0.14. I've put some maps out here if people are interested. That is approximately 106 feet, and it runs from the intersection of Steelhead Drive back away from it, 106 feet. Excuse me, not Steelhead Drive, Rosewood Street. And Rosewood Street is one of the other no parking zones. And that's from milepost 0.10 to 0.12. Those 2 streets are a T intersection. They're both narrow, and there is, if people park too close to the intersection, which has been an issue, you cannot go through that intersection with 2 vehicles. That one has to back up quite a ways. So the sheriff requested that we set no parking zones on 6th Avenue South and Rosewood Street. We also have 2 other sheriff's requests for no overnight parking, and that's on Feist Road, which is up in Tootle next to Harry Gardner Park, and Steelhead Drive, also up in Tootle, for no overnight parking, because we've had some issues in those 2 locations.
They can park there, just not stay the whole night.
Correct. You can
Yeah.
park there, you can go out and enjoy the amenities, but not for a long extended stay. Then we have,
A second on that, is that an automobile or an RV vehicle?
that is for all vehicles.
All vehicles.
Yeah, all vehicles on those locations. Then our remaining requests are on International Way, and this was a request from the Port of Longview. We are establishing a no parking zone from milepost 0.48 to 0.64. That's approximately 850 feet. That is centered on the intersection, the new intersection with the private road Panel Way. They have tracking issues with the trucks. If you've driven a truck, you know they don't have the same turning radius as a vehicle. So this will allow the trucks to turn directly into and out of their lanes without having to track into the other lanes. Also on International Way, the port has requested no overnight parking from milepost 0.28 to milepost 0.48, and then from milepost 0.64 to 0.71. And so that is for the remaining area of International Way, which is in the county. For those of you who are not familiar, the city limit line is at the railroad tracks. So it's from the railroad tracks south into the port. The port owns the majority of that parking, and they have had extensive issues with tractor trailers parking down there for extended periods, and the road is narrow. So two trucks parked on each side for long periods of time become an issue. So those are our requests to establish those parking restrictions.
Okay. Any questions?
Could you just go through the sort of process that you're trying to follow here so the public knows what they may or may not?
Sure. So we regulate no parking zones through the county code, chapter 11.32. So no parking zones have to be established by the board through the public hearing process. So we generally receive requests where there's issues, either from citizens, the sheriff's department, or in this case, the Port of Longview, requesting that we investigate areas to establish no parking zones. So when those requests comes in, I generally send out a staff member to go take measurements, take some pictures to see what the issues are out there. Once we gather that information, we generally take it to the board in a workshop where we discuss if the issues and how we'd like to proceed. And if they agree with moving forward for no parking zones, we will establish a public hearing, bring that to the board, set the date and time. Once they're set, they are posted on site or at the local post office. So these sites were posted with the notice printed on bright red paper on a stake in these locations. And then we hold the public hearing. And once they are approved, our staff will put up signs.
Okay, in some traffic regulations, like setting speed limits, there's some specific metrics that are followed to decide what. In this case, the judgment entirely of the individual, or do we need a number of accidents?
It is an individual, it is a judgment call. Looking at the International Way is the easiest because the port ran the turning templates, is what they call them, around the corners and showed where the trucks, if other vehicles were parked, they would strike them or have to cross the center line. Others are the measurement of the road. Let's say the road is 20 feet. If you've got people parking on both sides, you only have room for one vehicle. So when you're close to an intersection, that causes issues with people having to back up. So.
Yeah. And I think we all appreciate it. It's not a rubber stamp
Right.
process. It starts with a problem, then it gets investigated and confirmed before it ever gets to this point. So we appreciate that.
That was a very lucid explanation.
Yeah. Okay, I would open up. I don't see any other comments from us. I'd open up to public comments.
Maybe you said it and I missed it. No parking's 24 hours a day, right?
The no parking zones, yes.
No overnight parking is from when to when?
That is, the idea is that you don't park at 6 p.m. and not move again until 10 a.m. There is no established times, but if they would like for us to set 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., we could go ahead and revise this.
Well, I guess, and then how would a sheriff say, who's the sheriff's department apparently has requested some of these areas, but how would a sheriff know to cite somebody if overnight parking, if there's no time frame?
It would,
Bless
excuse
you.
me. So it would be a more have to be handled like the 2-hour parking limits, where they would have to observe when the vehicle is there and when it leaves, which 2-hour parking limits are fairly common in city areas. So it would be up to the sheriff's department to establish that they are parking overnight.
Well, if a sheriff talks to somebody and they move their vehicle 10 feet and crawl back into bed, you know, if there's no strict guidelines, okay, I was just curious. And basically the two entities, the port and the sheriff's department is who these center around, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'm looking at these, page 2 that you have here in the very last page. They're out in the country. They're not within a city. And one of them is the end of a county road right by the river. And the other one is by a bridge at the end of a road by the river. The reason I bring this up is because on Columbia River Road, right across from Italian Creek, there was a great campsite and they closed it down last year. And it was a knee-jerk reaction to homeless people had moved in there and stayed there for 4 months. So instead of having a nice camping spot there, they went ahead and closed it to any camping overnight. Instead, what they should have done, like they do in Forest Service and BLM, put a 14-day limit on it. So people can still use that camping spot. And on the last page here, I haven't even been there, but just looking at it, I can tell that it's probably people that are drift fishermen are losing out on this because they could pull their boat up there, camp overnight, and continue on the river. And then the second page, you got an end of the county road that overlooks the river, another good camping spot. So my reaction is, instead of closing these places down because of a small problem that you had at one time, since you're going to enforce it anyway, why not go ahead and put a 14-day limit on the camping over there? And I can understand in the city because maybe turnarounds with vehicles and all that kind of stuff, or residents or trash being left. But I don't think we should be closing down places that are good camping spots for the public.
Thank you for that. I have some of the similar issues. My wife and I go to Steelhead Drive 3 to 4
You can
times.
come closer to the microphone, please.
I'm sorry. My wife and I are regularly over at Steelhead Lane. I have not seen any investigation going on over there. I'm typically over there in the morning and then right after lunch hour. I do not understand how a no parking or no overnight parking in this area would improve public safety at all. The road is a dead end. It's used by fishermen. It's used by dog walkers. It's used by hikers. And it's used by people that are a little down and out and sometimes camp for 3 or 4 nights. In my 7 years of actively using this area because of our dogs, walking them and things, and talking with people, my experience has been that the damage that is done in that area, the burned out vehicles, are because people have stolen the vehicle and dumped it there. They're not going to pay attention to a no parking sign. It seems to me that to reflect on what the previous speaker said, the only damage I see is to the people that are choosing to camp there because they have no other place to go. And I feel that we're at a point in our society where we need to start looking out for the people and not just worrying about obviously damage done by others, but I have not seen any issues of public safety with the people that camp there. Typically the camping only occurs starting this time of year, and then it ends typically in the fall. It's very rare to see people camping there. You know, we need to, I think at this point in our society with the things going on, we need to have compassion for the people that have lost their ability to have a roof over their head. I have talked to some of these people. One of them has a local job, but doesn't have a place to live. And thankfully for the opening of the gas station, he actually has a shower now. So that's all I'd like to say. I think I do not know about the other situations, but with regarding steelhead, I think that this is not helpful for our society right now. Thank you.
Before you go, if I could ask you a question, how did you hear about this hearing?
Because I saw the little notice this big at the end of the road. And I go to the end of the road and park because we go and walk. Now, anyone that does overnight parking will not go to the end of the road. They tend to go about partway and turn around and park by these trees. Most people have not seen that sign. The other day, there were 4 vehicles there. When I asked one of the fishermen, he hadn't noticed it, but that's because another car was parked where the sign was. It was a very small sign. I was there on a day when no vehicles were there. I was curious why a red sign was out, so I went up and read it, and I'm glad I did. And I appreciate this hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If I may?
Yes.
Is there something you would do in response to the gentleman's comment about the sign?
We can work in the future and put a larger sign in. I apologize. I thought they were posting both ends, and I can communicate that better also, that you should be putting a sign at the beginning and at the end instead of just one end, so that you're
thank you.
putting 2 on each end.
Yeah, I'm gonna just be direct and as far as the campsite at Kalama River Road and Italian Creek, is there something you guys can do to reopen that? And even have even as low as a 7-day camping limit on it? Is there anything we can do? I mean, it's always been open. Nobody abused it except for that one time. They did it for 4 months. They finally got run out. But there's been a lot of people. They even have hunters come up and tell them to camp there. Before we go hunting.
Have to.
We've got to go. We've got to look at that. That's probably independent of this,
Probably independent of what?
of this hearing.
Well, I imagine since we're talking about it, it's her responsibility. They're closing things, so why can't they open them?
I don't know. Is that county property? That's
I'm
private. isn't it?
unsure of what you're talking about, but I can
Okay.
certainly look into
Yeah, go
it.
take a look at it.
Is it on the right of way that they shut down, or is it a physical piece of property?
It's a physical piece of property, but in order for them to put a sign, no parking, it's not private property then. Because they are allowing parking, but no overnight camping.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, but I can look into it because generally I'm only dealing with the right of ways and not physical properties that we own. But I can look into it
Okay.
and let the commissioners know.
That'd be great.
So Kalama River Road and Italian Creek.
Yeah, it's just down to the road about maybe 50 yards from Italian Creek.
Okay, I
Right.
will find out what I can.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Burt. I'm Director of Engineering and Facilities for the Port of Longview. And I'm just coming here this morning to thank you for considering the road closures and also looking at the overnight, not road closure, excuse me, the no parking and the no overnight parking along International Way. And grateful for Susan Eugenis for bringing this before you. If you've ever been on International Way leading to and from the port, it's a pretty busy road as it is, with much truck traffic. And we've seen with all the semis parking there and staying overnight, it causes a lot of issues with the traffic coming and going, where a lot of times you're having to tuck in and go single file through. So we're really grateful that you're looking at this and considering this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, do you have an idea where the people who currently use that parking? So
I do not. I know that there has been kind of a migration at those semis that tend to overnight. Some of them, most of them typically aren't parking there overnight. What they're doing is they're coming in, dropping their load, and then taking their tractor, the truck itself, and going somewhere else. And so they're just lining it up all along the road there. And then sometimes they'll come in the morning and pick up their load and leave. We've seen sometimes where they're actually using it as a transfer spot, where they'll drop a trailer off, another one will come in and they'll back up tail to tail and throw whatever they have in the trucks from one to another. And so just kind of been problematic on that roadway with regard to traversing that road and doing business.
do you have any idea how that'll impact by parking, how that'll impact the businesses around International Road?
We've actually talked to them, and for the most part, that's why we requested what we did. We don't see any impact at all. The businesses along International Way have parking within their facilities for their trucks. There is one business that doesn't, but those don't stay overnight. They come in, they're there for a very short period of time, get loaded, and then depart.
Okay. Trying to get into the port puts everybody in a queue. Is that not right?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
If the trucks have to go through the gate before going to the port, that can take a long time.
Typically, most of the trucks that are coming, there are some trucks that come there that are being loaded by some of our neighbors. And we never really see them there for more than an hour or two at tops. And the trucks that are coming into the port, some of them will park along the side, but they're there even for a shorter duration. At the port itself, when they come into our entrance, which is at the very end of International Way on the south end there, we have space for those trucks to come in, be loaded, and then depart. Sometimes as they're departing, they'll have to pull over for a second, put all their flags and stuff on, and then leave if it's an oversized load.
Yeah, it's up to you, I guess, how you do that. I know I've delayed quite a bit at some points, and I'm thinking I'm a truck and time is money. I'll do what I can and spend hours. I mean, park some places that I can be close to being the first time.
Yeah. And we've seen, I mean, years ago, decades ago, I was with Cowlitz County Public Works and was doing this, and we saw a similar situation, and I was actually sitting where Susan is now when we were talking about on Fiber Way. There was a lot of trucks that were parking there, and now if you'll notice, Fiber Way, West Rock has taken a portion of their property and made it into a truck parking facility, and so we see a lot of trucks that are using that now. They're not on the roadway anymore, causing issues with those that are traversing the road, but they're off the roadway and utilizing that instead. And that's probably, my guess is where they'll go to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have, I don't have an issue with most of this here. I'm a little concerned with the general. I worry about at times that we enact enforcement because of a minority that affects a larger group of people that are doing it right. So I'm concerned about the gentleman, the people that might go out and fish. Not really, I don't see anything on the no parking zones or the no overnights on the industrial way. I'm talking about some of this more rural. And I'm wondering if we should maybe get a little more information on what kind of issues that we're finding down there that we need to take. If it's an enforcement issue on just a very small few, I don't want to penalize the whole group that like to use it for walking or fishing or those type of things. Am I making sense on?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's also the situation of we can't control people in a direct way. We'll do it in an indirect.
Yeah.
That leads to putting handcuffs on everybody. So I would recommend, or I'm happy to make motion here to approve everything except I think items 2 and 3 are the ones questioned. And send them back and ask for additional information. Talk to the sheriff. And see what is really the essence.
Yeah,
And,
I
and that,
just,
yeah.
is that fair? I don't like infecting a whole group just because of a couple people.
And I am fine with that. So we're looking at Feist Road, which is item 2, and Steelhead Drive, which is item 7, removing those from approval today and then bringing them back at a different time when we gather more information.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, I'm,
okay.
that seems reasonable to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other public comments? Okay, I would close that portion of it. And if you want to make a,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I will probably need help from Susan to specify the areas of exclusion. Yes, there were seven total no parking zones. I move to approve all but items 2 and 3.
7, 2 and 7,
2 and 7.
2 and 7.
Thank you.
okay.
The- Correct. There's 3 different zones on International. So the total on the resolution is 7 different zones. So we're going to remove Feist and Steelhead.
Okay,
Is that right? I know Feist is the Steelhead, I'm not sure, but
Yes.
that's, okay, you're certain. All right, that's my motion.
okay,
Sticking to it. Oh,
okay. Any other comments on that? I see no hands. I see it. I would ask for a vote on the motion. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. That closes our public hearing. Thanks, Susan. I appreciate it. Any other business for the council today? Okay. As always, tomorrow or this afternoon, if you have any interest, we have one of the workshops is on the opioid settlement. We have one of our attorneys, David Berger, has been trying to work out a deal where our wish was that the counties would maintain control of funds that come to their areas. The initial law looked like the whole area, which was Thurston, Mason, Pacific, this whole big area had to have one entity that kind of oversaw the distribution. And our charge to our attorney was, we would like the counties. And so he's come up with a plan, and we're going to talk about that a little bit this afternoon at 1:30. So if anybody has any interest in that, that's probably the main topic for this afternoon.
Yeah, if I could add, I think Chairman and I are in agreement on the principle that you're trying to put as much into your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask the status of the document recording fees. I know the city of Longview is trying to get their hands on part of the county money. And now I understand that Kelso is starting to make that kind of a move. Can you give us an update on anything that you know about that process?
I don't know what the city of Longview's doing. I mean, they came with that one proposal and we weren't willing to give any more because they get it directly now. And city of Kelso, last council meeting I was at, they had that discussion that they want to look at doing that same thing. Now, in the city of Kelso, it's not the same dollar amount. They estimated anywhere from 8,000 to 14,000 a year. And if they choose to do that and get it direct from our treasurers, I think that's their decision.
Okay,
But I don't know. I know they're gonna have a workshop on it.
Okay.
Larry.
The city of Longview has already started the process and.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
It's not, they've completed it, actually.
they,
okay.
in January, right? Right around that period of time, or maybe
Yeah,
right in
right.
that period of time. So, and I'm gonna say quarterly, and I could be wrong on this. I think quarterly, then our treasurer cuts a check for whatever the document recording fees, their portion of what it would be to them.
Do you have any idea what the percentage is of the total that's going to Longview?
What I can tell you is, I think under the volumes that has been had in the past, and it really is, the dollar amount is dependent on the volume of real estate sales and stuff like that. I think it was estimated about 76,000 a quarter, right in that area,
Yeah,
300,000 a year.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty close on that.
and that's about 30% of the total amount,
Yeah.
What was it, Aaron?
about 30.
330? Okay. Okay, thank you.
If I may?
Yeah.
In keeping with my earlier statement about getting something down to the local, I think positively on both Longview and Kelso for trying to take whatever they feel is their proper legal allocation funds. Them to ask us to deal with their issues is probably not high on the list. So anyhow, in case somebody is thinking, no, I like that. When I use
Yeah.
it does make it difficult for us to decide on some things. Some documents. Funds will get spent in the city also, in Longview. Makes it difficult for me anyhow to decide that fair or not fair. Funds that really belong to the unincorporated areas. Who's the income? We look at that on a case basis. It's also the negative attribute for them, for the cities is going to be their revenue is going to be really, it's like an insurance pool, and now they've cut themselves out of the pool. And if sales in the city of Longview or transactions in the city of Longview go down, revenues. And also, if I had power to do it, I would not cut any stuff. I would just recover the cost of the report. I'd also want to remind people that don't know what the status is on that extra $100. It used to be $250. Now I think it's $300. But we are trying to, the auditor is really trying to figure out how to handle every category of documents. Narrowed down so $203 applies. If you think it applies now, $100 applies. Different. Anyhow, we're trying to figure out how to make it survivable for the citizens, even though I don't think it's a legitimate fee or tax.
Okay. I see no hands. I see nobody approaching. We will adjourn this meeting. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, gentlemen.